where we were evacuated from. My three brothers and I were assigned the same compartment with Chinese who lived in Shillong. The nuns hid my sister, so she wasn't evacuated. My three brothers, you see, were on the foreign registry, so the Indian Army knew where to find them. My sister wasn't. When the Indian Army guys went to St. Mary's and asked the nuns if they were students with Chinese surnames in the school, the nuns said no. So the soldiers went away and my sister stayed in school, hidden, I guess. It was something like the last scene in The Sound of Music. I wasn't on the foreign registry, but because I was staying with a Chinese family, I was picked up with them. My parents were in the last car of the train with the Chinese from Hakka. At each station, my dad came out and tried to find my brothers, my sister and me. They worried about us. My mom wasn't feeling well. She had a tonsillectomy 2 days before she and my dad was evacuated. Halfway through the journey to Rajasthan, my parents found us, but we were not allowed to move into their car. After that, at each station, my brothers and I would get off and walk towards the end of the train, and my parents walked towards the front, and we meet in the middle. We checked on each other. The Chinese arrived in Deoli detention camp in December of 1962. From all accounts, they arrived in the camp unprepared to intern so many people. Here is the 9-year-old Ming and her first day in Deoli. I entered the camp in the early evening when my parents and the grown-ups were busy settling into the barracks. I walked around looking for water to drink. In the compound, in the middle of the wing, I found a big concrete tank with taps built into the sides. I thought, good, there must be water in there. I turned on the tap and red water dribbled out. I don't know why the army people added red dot to the water. The whole camp didn't have any water on the first day. We didn't get food on the first day either. The next day, the army sent in people to cook for us 3 times a day. The cook threw potatoes and other vegetables in a pot and added curry spices. And we got something like bhaji, mixed veggie. They didn't even wash the vegetables or the potatoes. Gradually, the Chinese resigned of being locked up behind barbed iron fence. I left out chunks and chunks of it because that chunks it shows how resilient the Hakka were, because they had no knives. Because the food was so bad, they asked the camp to allow them to cook. So they said, sure, okay, you can cook for yourself, great. So they throw a huge chunk of a lamb leg or this, and they said, well, what do I do with it? Because they were not allowed, they were strict search before they go into the camp, and they take away the knives, jewelry, and any metal. So they're very ingenious. So what they did was they took out some metal on the shelving, they sharpened it, and they will have a whole bunch of them to distract the soldiers, because they were guarded for soldiers. So they will sharpen, use this little metal and sharpen, using that to cut the vegetables. And also they build their own stove. It was pretty ingenious bunch of people, I must say. Here's Ming again. After 2 years in the camp, the commander started to release some of the families. I watched my friends leave with their parents. But my family's name stayed off the release list. I watched the camp gradually empty. For 4 years, I played in the camp, and occasionally I asked my parents when we could go home. They didn't know. The International Red Cross came to the camp. They brought things for the inmates. I tasted canned chicken soup for the first time. I asked one of them when we would be released. They didn't know either. The Indian Prime Minister, he wasn't a Prime Minister then.
Home Minister.
Yeah, he was, he held a post on the Senate, Foreign Minister. Sashri visited the camp. I remember I and the other children posed for pictures beside him. I asked Sashri when he could go home. He said he would talk to his cabinet when he got back to Delhi. But I guess he forgot about us when he got back. By the fourth year of internment, there weren't that many Chinese left in the camp. A few families from the hill stations and some Chinese from Kangra, Calcutta. The grown-ups speculated that the military arrested these people from Kangra because they were more visible. They go, I think what she meant was they go to the Chinese consulate. They were seen before 1962 going into Chinese consulate. We were finally released in July or August of 1966, almost the last batch to leave Deoli. When the military people just dropped us off outside our old address in Big Boy and drove off, the restaurant and house has been taken over by someone else. We just stood there. We didn't know where to go. Luckily, the landlord saw us and he was able to give us a place to stay in his housing complex. The landlord took us to the godown, that's the warehouse, where our stuff were kept. My dad found most of our things were picked over. All the good stuff were gone. The soldiers, when they came in 1962 and arrested my parents, confiscated all the money. We never got it back. My father stayed around Big Boy for 2 or 3 months. He started his catering business again. Since most of the equipment, like woks, had disappeared, he wrote to my aunt to send woks and other stuff. But my dad wasn't comfortable in Big Boy. He said he didn't want to start fresh. He said he didn't want to lose it all over again. So we left for Calcutta 2 or 3 months after we returned to Big Boy. He went into partnership with his friend and opened a restaurant. Less than 2 years after we were released, my dad had a heart attack and he passed away. So most of the stories of the detainees were similar to what Ming has experienced. They endured the internment, lost everything, and they worked and start up again. And another, the psychological effect of the internment itself, on all the Chinese Indians, is that it seems to be we don't want to talk about the subject. Ming is now living in Scarborough, have 2 grown-up sons. She didn't say anything about her internment until she saw a news clip on television about, I think it was the Desert Storm, the first war in the Middle East. And she kind of casually said, oh yeah, I was in camp like that. And her 2 sons look at her, or teenagers look at her, say, what, Mom? And what do you mean you're in a camp? So you couldn't imagine that. But anyway, then she gradually started to tell the story. I'm very glad that she agreed to talk to me. I mean, she had talked to me because there are many people. Initially, when I approached the association, and many said they wouldn't tell, they don't want to talk about it. And for my thesis, I finally got 4 interviewees that were willing to tell me. Even that, it's this stayed with us because while we were in Tim Horton talking about Deoli, singing Hindi song and having a good time really, and then suddenly one of them stopped, looked over, leaned close and said, are they listening to me? Are they listening to us? And then suddenly I realized, yes, we all have this mentality. We are afraid. We are afraid that we'll be will be arrested again. They'll be arrested again, and we will be hearing for the knock on the door for the police. But the two was just East Indian security guards who were having their lunch, before the job. So I am very happy that some of the association members talked to me, and my thesis, if anybody is interested, you Google my name and it should be pop up. You can download it free from the University of Toronto website. Thank you.